What an amazing time we're living in. We've walked through this doorway into a new age and into a new world that's forming as we go. So it's exciting as we release the old world and we release the experience of duality that we're done with, that we've done to death, and we walk forward. So I've had many ask me, what is this Trinity Energy Progression that you teach, and how does it have to do with any of this? And so that's what this webcast is about. It's simply an explanation on how it fits in, how to consider it, and why it would be helpful for many on their path, on their active spiritual path, on the journey in this new age. So we are at this culmination of the experience of duality. And my understanding is this: we are all part of the all-encompassing divine, the oneness, the source, God, whatever you want to call. So we're all part of the divine. And how this has all come about is we have always been, we are, and we always will be eternal. And we said, what if, because we're here all the time, we're always here, what if we tried the perception of a me and a not me? Maybe try the illusion of what it would feel like or look like or be like if we had a me and a not me. And that's where duality came from, the idea of a me and a not me. So what we did was we created all these partitions, and the way I look at it is very much like a magic trick. A magician puts the assistant into a big box and puts these slices, these partitions in between different parts of the assistant, and then pulls the pieces apart to show that that the assistant has been pulled apart into pieces, and then brings back together and pulls the partitions out, and then the assistant's whole again. But we know it was an illusion, right? But it's really cool to see, and we like to believe that that's how it was. That's really what we've done. That's a physical manifestation of what we've done in terms of duality, in terms of creating the perception that there is a me and a not me, and partitioning even that within ourselves. Different kinds of energies, different kinds of levels of consciousness, different lifetimes. And where the Trinity Energy Progression comes down to is the core. My understanding is it's the core of realizing our completion, realizing and remembering that we've always been complete, but we just forgot. We put up those partitions to forget. And the Trinity has to do with, as it was presented to me, the energies of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and the divine child. And the divine child being the power of creation. And if you think about it, what we've done with duality is we've externalized all of this stuff. We've pretended that we weren't the divine. We've pretended that we didn't have all the power inside of us. And that's just been part of the experience and the lessons. So in doing so, then we create these hierarchies on some can do things that I can. Some are better than things than I am. Some are worse than I am. And then the ego's job has been to explore that to the fullest. All the feelings that come from the ego, the things, feelings of resistance, fear and anger, resentment, rejection, sorrow, pain, grief, all that kind of stuff, guilt, doubt, all those kind of things, that has to do with the feeling of separation. It boils down to feelings of separation. And my understanding is the only true is of the universe is unconditional love, and that's what the divine is. That's what we are, and everything else has been created it's an illusion. So what we're doing is we're coming back to that. We're coming to the realization of that. We're allowing still some partitions, but we are only doing them as thin veils. We're removing most of the veils to remember that oneness, to remember the divinity that we are a part of. And in doing so, this next step as we step into the new age is fully stepping into our truth. And when we say fully stepping into our truth, it has to do with stepping into our divinity, stepping into who we truly are, which is the divine, and taking full responsibility for everything within our realities. Because we're the ones who create it in all these different ways, shapes, and forms. Now, on the path to that, my understanding is one of the biggest ways of realizing that in the most efficient, quickest, most powerful way is to work at and releasing all the partitions within ourselves. So At the core, there's the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and divine child. All of that's within us. We need nothing external to us. So everybody who's searching for a soulmate or somebody to complete them, that is what we're releasing. We don't need anybody to complete us because we are complete already within ourselves. And it's when we find out that we are complete within ourselves, that we don't need others, that we actually will attract the best relationships to us, because we will attract others at that vibration who are in the same place. And it's the healthiest, most positive, and joyful and loving kind of relationship. So anyway, the first part, again, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the divine child. That was my understanding of the core and original meaning of the divine Trinity. Beyond that, we also have split ourselves into all of these different other sections. So we had oversouls and groups of collective consciousness that were like parts of multiples that we've overlapped. Then we have these I ams, individuals, what we call I ams, which are individual souls, or what we call individuals. And each of those, to my understanding, has 12 levels of consciousness, if we have chosen to have the twin flame experience. Some of us have, some of us have not. We've done it at different parts of the experience. Some of us have done them as we have been separating from the oneness. We have some of us we've done afterwards, and have memories of that at very deep levels. And so my understanding is that generally, if we have a twin flame, that we have 12 levels of consciousness, and the 12th level, we have 11 levels of consciousness as the individual, and the 12th level is our combined I am. And then we have lifetimes. We have, for every lifetime, a bazillion timelines to actually experience all those lessons in different ways with different options through the timelines in that experience. So if you think about just even one I am, if you look at that, has just this endless number of partitions that we have created to create this separation, this perception of separation. And part of what holds us back are the things that are left unresolved because of the partitions, because we don't understand them, because they were left in their compartments instead of looking at it as part of the whole in lessons. So when we do that, when we start pulling out those partitions, we can resolve all those outstanding negative resistant emotions and things that are holding us back from those lifetimes, from those timelines, from just working from one level of consciousness. So for example, right now, we're focusing on, in general, we focus our consciousness here, even though we have 11 other levels of consciousness that are simultaneously running. Right now, we're only conscious of this one, yet we have 11 other levels in general, or 10. And that's just the I am. So we are putting our experiences into these boxes which limit us. So once we pull out those partitions just to those levels of consciousness, and we realize the power we have at that highest level of consciousness, then it releases so many of our limitations. So that's what I'm saying, is as we pull out the partitions, we are able to look at all of the facets that we have created of ourselves into this beautiful, huge, amazing, brilliant gemstone, and realize the power within, even just within the individual I am, without even going beyond that. So what the Trinity Energy Progression is a tool. And it's a tool to bring back the remembrance of our divinity, of our Christed consciousness, and remember that it's all within us, that we have done all this, that we create all of this. And there have only been a set number of times in throughout this existence where we have remembered that. And one was when we first entered here into what we call right now Mu, or Lemuria, and then we put down the veils, and we started more and more partitions, and that was all part of this entry into this density, this heavy density of separation. And we also have like many other life cycles, and we've cycled through, we've come to these peaks, but then what has happened is the ego has always taken over at the peak of the remembrance and said, okay, so I'm going to take this and use this for my own good and forget about everybody else. Well, that's the peak and the epitome of separation. And then what happens is, because of that, we crash and have to start all over again. We cycle around again. So we've done this a number of times. Lemuria, Atlantis, ancient Egypt, and there are several other cycles that we've done. And so this time my understanding is we're done with that. So now is the time for us to cycle around and remember this. Remember our beautiful divinity, and remember the oneness that we are a part of, and move forward as part of that oneness, while also maintaining the understanding of the veils of the individual that we've created, which is the beauty of it, without letting the ego run that show and take it over and have one thing over the other. So in doing that, the Trinity Energy Progression is a tool to entrain us to open up the pathways into our Christed consciousness. And it's a leapfrogging thing, because we're sort of on, well, actually, we really are on the express track on getting to the next level now, because we're sort of pulling off the Band-Aid and getting done with this whole experience of duality and getting ready for the next Earth 2.0 kind of thing, which I talk about a lot. But in doing so, we're opening all the channels into our Christed consciousness, which is all inside of us. That's who we are. All of this, our package, is the package that we've put around it. So it's really opening the pathways and taking out the partitions that have prevented us from accessing that within. So how is that different? So people ask me, how is this different from, say, energetic modalities like Reiki, and just there's a whole bunch of other ones like Theta Healing, Archivedial Light, Healing Touch. I mean, there's just a lot. There's many, many, many other ones. And I was trained in a good handful of them before this was, the remembrance of this was gifted to me back in the 2010, so that I would understand how it was different, because I could feel the difference and understand it, so that I can help teach it and help others move forward with it. Because my understanding is that what I volunteered to do was to help the remembrance, help bring in the remembrance of our individual power, of our individual divinity, and to help others remember that. And this is one tool of many to do that. And others will have the same kind of tool, but in just a different perspective, a different way to get there, so that everybody's, I call it different flavors of ice cream. Everybody will find the way they need to find that Christed consciousness, to find that whole, what we do have is the oneness inside of us. So in accessing this, it leapfrogs us forward, okay? We open up the channels so that we can start accessing the Christed consciousness within us. When we start doing that, we become more powerful. As we become more powerful in that, we open up the channels even further. As the channels open up even further, it becomes more powerful. So you see how that cycles, and it's exponential. And it is all in the name of unconditional love and our oneness and our connectedness, and all as a part of each other, with the highest and best as the intention. So the difference with this and other modalities, as I've been asked, is that with many other modalities, with most of them, you're pulling information in from outside. You're pulling energy in from outside. The perception is. And all that has been doing is perpetuating that idea of externalization of our power. So even Reiki or anything like that, you're pulling in the energy from outside. You're pulling it in from a frequency in from outside, and being a conduit to let somebody have access to that particular frequency of energy that they can't remember how to access themselves. So with Trinity, you're accessing the full spectrum, because the Christed consciousness, the divinity, is the full spectrum of everything. It's like the spectrum of light, and light is, like, say, white light is the compendium of all of the parts of the spectrum, all of the rays, all of that, and so all of the frequencies. So you could be working with the violet ray or the blue ray, or they're just rays that people work with, and that's fine. But it's the perception of, instead of accessing it outside of us, remembering that it's actually all within. So we all have access to the whole thing, and it's a different perception, a different level of power when we say, I already have all this in here. I'm just going to work with this part of it today. So it's like an easier, more powerful, more direct way of pulling it in, instead of having to feel like we're pulling it in from outside. Therefore, it is very powerful, very instantaneous, very immediate. And when we do healings with it, we are turning up our light. We are opening up the channels to the light and turning it up as bright as we can take it. And we're healing from the inside out. Healing meaning dissolving away the partitions, dissolving away the residue of all of the feelings of separation, and healing that, resolving it, completing the lessons and knowing them, knowing our whole totality as an individual and as part of the oneness. and healing it from the inside out, which are the deepest parts of us out. So many times we do healing work and it starts at sort of like at a middle level, and then we can go deeper as we work. Well, this starts from the inside and works out, so it pushes all the deep muck out to the surface very quickly and very powerfully and simply, which is really, really cool. And when we actually work, and you can, and actually the primary method for using this is for self-development. But we can do it with other people. We can do it with collectives. There's a lot of work being done with this at the collective and oversoul levels as well. But when we do that, we plug into the consciousness of another. We plug into somebody else. We plug into their energy field. We step into their energy and meld with them because we are already one. And we we give them like a battery boost and turn up the light from within. And that again is very deep healing. It's very, very powerful and shifting and instantaneous and fast and deep. So it's here as a tool to help us remove the need for other tools outside of us, to simply remember how to access that power within. And that's our next step on the journey. That's like stepping into this new world, stepping into this new reality, bringing the magic back here and changing and shifting and upping our vibration and moving together, moving forward together. And the other question I get from people is if they don't have any other practice, any other modality, would they still be able to use this? Would this be too powerful? Absolutely not. Of course they can. Of course you can use this no matter where you are. If you are feeling drawn to it, then it is for you. I always laugh because a lot of people who are getting the message to get this, or like they're getting pushed by their guides. I was told that people would just be drawn to it when they were ready for it. And a lot of people who have taken the classes have seen threes everywhere, started seeing threes everywhere and the word Trinity everywhere and all that kind of stuff. So that could be you too. It doesn't have to be, but it just is one of some of the funny things I've heard. But anyway, I've had in the classes that we've done, I've had students that are simply interested in their own personal journeys. They have no desire to be a practitioner like with other people or whatever, that they simply want to progress themselves. It's an excellent tool for that, and I have had them take it with no problem, with no other practice in place, no other, like besides maybe meditation and just tapping into their higher self and all that kind of stuff. But I've also had it all the way through to very experienced practitioners and teachers of other modalities, channelers, mediums, things like that, who are looking for a way to change the way things are done into this new paradigm of the new reality. And so people have been practicing and doing this stuff for 10, 20, 30 years, have taken it. And so everybody from the beginners all the way to those who are very advanced who have taken it, have had amazing results when they've used it. And we can shift everything that we do. We can still use all that other stuff. We can still use, we can still channel if we want to. We can still use other modalities if we want to. But the difference is we then start pulling it from within here instead of pulling it from outside, which makes it, again, very powerful, a lot more powerful. And it's just fun. Limitless is the key. We have released the boundaries. There are very few, actually there are no limits in using the Trinity Energy Progression, and how it's taught is to release. Actually, the biggest challenge that most people have is releasing the boundaries because they think you have to do this a certain way. So I'm always encouraging those who've taken it to play, and we have a very tight community of practitioners on, and we share with each other like what's going on and new insights that have come in and experiences that everybody's had, because it's helping us to all remember our limitlessness, because that's our biggest challenge, that's our biggest limit, is the fact that we forget that we are limitless. And so that's part of what this is about too. So those are the basics. And if you want more information about how the energy came into me and how it was given into or gifted back into this reality with Joshua and Mary and Ezekiel and all that kind of stuff, you can look at the website at trinityenergyprogression.com. I have classes going on regularly. In fact, this year I'm so excited I'll be starting to teach facilitator classes so that others can also teach it, because it's time for us to really get on the the exponentially fast track and have all this fun together, because that's what we're doing, is we're moving together into this new world, into this new age. So we'll have classes coming up. I will be doing them here in North Carolina as well as nationally in different places as the need arises and as I'm guided, and hopefully, and from my understanding, probably beyond that in a very short period of time. So look at the schedule, and I hope to see you at a class soon. And if you have any questions, you can email me at ACoulter@trinityenergyprogression.com, or again, you can look at the website for all updates and information at trinityenergyprogression.com. Thank you, and namaste.